I'm a fun guy. Obviously, I love the game of basketball.
In with our Mark Spears for the very latest. Mark, what are you hearing on the Damian Lillard trade front?
Well, everybody's waiting about Miami Heat and South Beach, and it's just everything I'm hearing is really, really quiet there, right? And Blazers are continuing to talk to other teams where I've heard the likes of Chicago and Milwaukee and even Philadelphia. And even though Chicago thing's kind of waning a little bit, but the hottest name that I'm hearing right now is of interest is the Toronto Raptors, actually. Talked to two really high-ranking team executives today, and they said that Toronto's the front runner, and they wouldn't be surprised if he ended up in the six. Right now, though, there is no trade imminent. There's nothing hot, but I do know that Toronto is our interested suitor. They've had several conversations with the Blazers, and Masai Ujiri, his history, he's not afraid of doing such deals. I mean, the expectation is that Dame wants to be in Miami, and could he go somewhere else? But if he does go to Toronto, I mean, Masai did this in 2018 with Kawhi Leonard.
Yes.
Getting him from the San Antonio Spurs, convincing him ultimately that this would be a good place for that season, and the Raptors won their lone championship, and Kawhi moved on to the Clippers. But with Dame, you got a guy that's got 3 years left on his deal. He's known to be a professional. I know he would show up. I know he would play. Would he like being in Toronto? I think you're going to have to get Drake to get in his ear a little bit, being an ambassador that he is. Toronto's a great city. Masai would surely be rolling the dice here if he could get this to happen.
Yep.
But right now, it's really, really quiet, and people are talking the most about Toronto sneaking in there.
This is very interesting, Mark, because while you're saying there is no trade imminent, we know we're a week away from training camp starting, and that is a real deadline for Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers here. Don't go too far. I do want to crunch the numbers on this Toronto Raptors discussion for Damian Lillard here as we say hello to our front office insider, Bobby Marks. Bobby, this is a little bit tricky because offering a package that the Blazers want, but also leaving the Raptors with pieces to contend is a real balancing act. So please explain, how would this work?
Well, when you look at Damian Lillard, who earns $45 million this season, Toronto has to come within 125% of that number. So you're looking roughly around $36, $37 million. And when you start building the contracts, it certainly starts with a player like OG Anunoby, and then we can go certainly with a player like Chris Boucher, Otto Porter Jr., and Grady Dick. That gets you there, Malik. And we haven't even talked about the draft asset component when you're looking at it. Toronto, remember, they owe a 2024 protected top 6 pick to San Antonio, so there is restrictions as far as what they can trade. But I have a glass half empty feeling on this deal here because there is so much risk involved. You look at it from Portland's perspective, Anunoby's going into the last year of his contract. The cost to retain him is significant. And certainly from Toronto's perspective, how much better does Damian Lillard get you compared to where you are right now, compared to how much you have to give up?
Right, because when we're talking about the Kawhi Leonard trade, that's all in on a team that very much looked like a championship roster. I'm looking at this now, the trade machine that we just fired up, maybe it is, but certainly there's a lot more competition. This isn't necessarily an either or, right? It's not necessarily Miami or Toronto, but for the sake of discussion here, where is the better fit?
I still think the better fit for him is Miami. Just because seeing Miami get to the finals, seeing how they lost to Denver, how they needed one other guy to provide that scoring punch, the surefire points that they needed, Damian Lillard would be a good fit. Now, with potentially Giannis hanging out there in his future for next summer, what is Miami thinking now? You know what I mean? Because Miami's a team that, yes, could they use Damian Lillard? Absolutely. But they are also a culture that can get by and max out on the guys they have now. Obviously, they made the finals with this current group. So do they wait for Giannis? I find this very interesting, Malika. This morning, I got an email from Bet Online. Vegas tends to know these type of things. Remember, when Kawhi Leonard's future was up in the air, Toronto emerged out of nowhere in Vegas, right? This morning, I saw Damian Lillard next team if Portland or Miami is not involved. Boston Celtics 2-1. Boston Celtics. That would be a great fit for Boston. Obviously, they lost Marcus Smart. They would get a point guard in there who can score. Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Mark?
Well, I also hear that Portland Trail Blazers fancy Grady Dick, great shooter, young, And someone might say, well, what about Tyler Hero? He's a young shooter as well, but certainly the money is greatly different in both cases. And I believe Grady's a little bit taller as well. So keep an eye on that. He's somebody that they would definitely want. I don't think such a deal gets made unless Grady Dick is involved. But again, no trade is imminent. There's just been conversation. And that perhaps shows you where things are in the Lillard sweepstakes right now, is that there really isn't much going on, where Toronto looks like the hottest team just because everything else is so quiet.
Grady Dick, TikTok star, friend of the show. But the thing about this is, with training camp a week away, Mark, things can change just on a dime in terms of the trade market for Damian Lillard. So let's just back up the bus just a little bit, because you mentioned Boston. Bobby, can you make that work for us?
Well, remember, Jaylen Brown can't be traded because he signed that Supermax. We're certainly not involving Jason Tatum from a draft equity standpoint. They have all their first-round picks. San Antonio controls a future pick here. Now we're looking at adding those same numbers, getting to $37 million. Would it be a player like Derek White, who's penciled in to start this year? Malcolm Brogdon. I don't see how that fits in Portland, especially for a young team. Third youngest in the NBA. Robert Williams, as far as from a center position here. I see it hard from Boston's perspective, adding those numbers up there, just because there's not a blue chip prospect that would be involved in that deal.
Boston, certainly a team that's going to be judged in the playoffs, not in what they do in the regular season, if they can get over this hump. Bobby Marks, thank you so much for taking the time to break this all down, explain it to us as we see the numbers populating there on the screen. Mark Spears, please do not go too far, because Damian Lillard is just one of many questions that we have with training camp 1 week away. Still to come on NBA Today. James Harden's future is another one in Philadelphia. Then, of course, the expectation.